Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. The views, opinions, and technical analysis presented during this webinar are those of Stepan Company or not necessarily those of UL. The appearance of this content on UL sites does not constitute an endorsement by UL or its affiliates. Today's webinar is How to Deliver Optimum Performance with Low Foam Surfactants and is presented by Stepan. Your presenters today are Dr. Sanwook Lim, Research Associate Lead, Rachel Lang, Functional Chemist, and Russ King, Global Marketing Manager for the HI&I market. My name is Derek Ratcherworthy-Well, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Please type your questions in the question box located on your screen. We are recording today's event, and we'll send you a link by email when it's been posted to lprospector.com. Now I'd like to hand it over to Russ. Are you ready to begin?
Yes. Thank you, Derek. I'm Russ King, the Global Marketing Manager for HI&I and alkoxylation for Stepan. And I want to thank everyone online for attending today's webinar on delivering optimum performance with low foam surfactants. In today's webinar, I'm going to provide a quick market overview of low foam surfactants, and then Sanwook will spend some time on the science behind the foaming aspect of these products. And then Rachel Lang will go into the role that low foam surfactants play in applications, with a focus or highlight on the wear wash application and corresponding formulations. And we will then end with questions as time allows. Overall, nonionic surfactants represent really a significant share of the broader low foam surfactant market, and it outperforms the overall HI&I market when you compare the growth of roughly 6% to 4%. Some reports show that number really closer to 7%. And the key driver of this in HI&I, specifically the industrial and institutional sectors, is the desire for operational efficiency, which is critical in automated systems like cleaning in place and industrial dishwashers, where foam really disrupts the process. Other drivers are innovations in alkoxylation chemistry to improve really the performance and the sustainability. And regulatory compliance, for example, you're really looking at stricter wastewater treatment and pollutions control in regulations that favor low foam surfactants or low foam formulations. When it comes to the regional impacts, while Asia is expected to capture roughly 35% of the market by 2035, and this is really driven by the industrial growth in agrochemical demand in China and India. North America will continue to show strong growth due to regulatory and sustainable drivers in HI&I, like the example that I mentioned earlier. Sustainability and product diversity are really a common trend in HI&I, but this especially holds true with low foam surfactants in North America and Europe, where diversity of feedstock is critical in this market, along with government and corporate sustainability goals that are really amplifying the adoption of biodegradable and low VOC formulations. So really the key takeaway for this overview is really there's a real opportunity for growth with low foam surfactants. And that's especially true in the HI&I market, where in today's world, volume growth through innovation is going to be really critical for future success. I now want to hand off to Sanwook, who will provide an overview of the science behind low foam surfactants.
Thank you, Ross, for the great information in the market of the low foam surfactant. So as you see, so the low foam surfactant, they have a good attention in the consumer market and also the industrial market because it is quite interesting the surfactant provide a lower foam than just usual. So today we put together some kind of science behind how to drive the low foam from the surfactant and how do you use that property for your real application. So in order to understand that, we have to identify what kind of mechanism we have to focus and how to convert to the value of the final formulation. So I hope you enjoy this presentation. So yeah, the foam is everywhere. So I'm pretty sure all the audience, you have the knowledge about the surfactant. So if you use the surfactant, the meaning of the surfactant is surface active material. So they just activate your surfaces, they activate your interfacial energy between the the air and air, and the air and liquid, and liquid and solid. So the forming of from the surfactant is kind of inevitable phenomenon, inevitable the property. Sometimes that's a good. For example, when you have vehicle for the vehicle care product, I want to get the good coverage, and I want to make sure my customer is indulged enough to get the kind of that visual affection. Okay? Sometimes the foam itself is very beneficial for the froth flotation. I can get the separation of my mineral by using the foam. Okay? However, if I have some application you require surface activity as well as a low foaming, that's quite challenging because surfactant inevitably provides some foam property in the formulation. Great example is a CIP or food processing or even dishwasher. If you want to just use very high foaming surfactant in the automatic dishwasher, you don't want to talk about that because I tried before and then my wife was so furious about that. So yes, so happier wife, happier life. Just one additional the thought. But so what I'm saying is really, really important to control that form for your application to deliver the maximum value of your final product. Okay? So we'll talk about some kind of science behind of the how to then control the form with some key property of the surfactants. So in general, in the market, especially in the HI&I market, there are three big class of the surfactant you can get the lower foaming. Okay? The one is the diacrylathoxylate with just regular nonionic surfactant, but slightly less soluble in the water. For example, you have the low ethoxylation number in your molecule, which is a hydrophilic group, then you'll have slightly moderate form to even lower form. You can even change the hydrophobic structure of your molecule. But the other class is much more effective. So the smart scientists, they design some molecule to you by using the propylene oxide group as a functional group. Okay, so we'll talk about the more detail of this molecule because you can even drive much lower forming or even deforming of the property from the surfactant. So let's talk about the just regular surfactant first. But before that, we want to understand why do you have foam, okay? So without the surfactant, so let's talk about it. So I don't have any surfactant, I have a pure water. I want to shake it. I have the film formation actually. I have the foam formation actually from just pure water. But imagine that I don't have anything in my water. So I have the film. I just magnify the film between air and air bubble. And there is a water film. Okay. I don't have anything else. This water film just hanging around the air. I don't have any friction between air and liquid. It's negligible. So your drainage of the liquid is very, very fast. Meaning I have the film is very, very unstable. I'm not going to see any kind of visual form if I have just pure water. Okay. What if we have the surfactant? If we have the surfactant, you have the suction layer of the surfactant at the interface between air and liquid. You'll have a suction layer. Imagine this one is kind of pipe. Very flexible pipe, okay? So you have the more surface drag at the interface, so your liquid is slowly drained into the bottom, so you'll have much stable film. Therefore, you have the foam. You know that the foam is thermodynamically unstable. You will eventually have the dissipation of the foam, but you have the metastable form because you have the surfactant. They just deaccelerate the drainage of your liquid. Then how do you actually then control the form? The most common way is change the structure of your molecule. Imagine you have the suction layer, but I change the suction layer from the semi-linear ethoxylate to the branched ethoxylate. Okay? So imagine you have more linear molecule. They kind of condense each other pretty well structured and well constructed layer. But if you have the branch structure in your hydrophobic group, you have much, much less constructed layer, so you'll have faster drainage of the liquid. Therefore, you have the more unstable form. You'll have the lower form than just regular surfactant. So in this plot, we measure the foam height as a function of the concentration at ambient temperature using C9, C11 linear aqueous ethoxylate with the 6 EO. The condensation of the ethoxylation is 6 mole of the EO. And the other one is a comparison is branched aqueous ethoxylate, same C11, but you have just branch structure as you can see in this the diagram. So with that structure change, we were able to reduce the foam lower than just regular surfactant. So this is the one way to control your foam just for the regular non-ionic surfactant. Okay, so I'm gonna show you this video. So you always see the foam structure from the semi-linear aqueous ethoxylate. The other one is a Mecon UD5. That one is C11 branched aqueous ethoxylate. You will see that the faster liquid drainage, therefore the bubble growth rate is much faster. Then you'll have more fragile and dry form in this observation. So Derek, can you just play the video one? Yes, thank you, perfect. So as you can see, your liquid drain is much faster. Your bubble growth rate is much faster. You'll have much fragile form if you use branched aqueous ethoxylate, not the semi-linear aqueous ethoxylate. Okay. So then, what's the practical value? So imagine you are in the situation. I want to use a surfactant, and I'm okay. I want to show the foam, okay, because I need some foam for some visual affection, okay, or some surface coverage, but I don't want to have a stable foam, okay. You just want to just quickly rinse my surfactant foam from the surfactant so that I can get more efficient operation. In the vehicle care, I have so many residue foam that just hinder the process of the next step. Okay. In the equipment maintenance, it's good to have the good foam, but I just want to get the fast foam breaking so that my worker, they can just save the time, we can save the labor, we can reduce all the manufacturing overhead. That's a monetary value of your product. So that is why it is very important to design your surfactant to deliver the optimum performance and to convert to the monetary value. The video I'm going to show you is just quick video. So I was trying to rinse the surfaces, but as you can see, the foam is too fragile from the semi-linear aqueous ethoxylate, the branched aqueous ethoxylate, so you can just easily just remove that foam with just quick rinse water. Okay, so you can just save your time, you can just reduce the manufacturing overhead cost, so on and so forth. That's just one way to think about how do you leverage that property for your application. So that was just regular surfactant. Okay, so now let's talk about more fun part. Okay, so the smart scientists, they knew that the foam ability or foam stability of the surfactant is a strong function of the surfactant structure. Then can we even modify hydrophilic group by incorporating partially hydrophilic hydrophilic functional group? That one is propylene oxide or even butylene oxide. So the smart science trying to incorporate that partially hydrophilic group in your molecule to increase the complexity of your structure. Therefore, you'll have much more less dense suction layer, so you can even drive your liquid drainage much faster than that. Like this photo. So just regular surfactant versus PO incorporated surfactant. We call in this presentation and slide, one of the example is alcohol alkoxylate, PO cap alcohol alkoxylate, and PO extended alcohol alkoxylate. Okay, for the PO extended alcohol alkoxylate, you have the PO group, partially hydrophilic group in the middle. So you have more smooth transition from the hydrophobic group to the hydrophilic group. So it is lower foaming, but sometimes it just stabilizes your film. Okay. So it is much effective tool to get the control of the foam, but not going to break the foam. However, if you have that PO block at the end of your molecule, now you have pretty dramatic change of the hydrophobicity to hydrophilicity. Hydrophobic group and hydrophilic group and partially hydrophobic group. Okay, so you'll have much more less dense the suction layer, as you can see, and on the picture on the right-hand side, you'll have much faster film drainage if you incorporate the PO group in your hydrophilic group. Okay? So that's the one reason that most of the low foam surfactant in the market, they usually have the multiple functional group to drive that low foam. Let me show you the one example. So we prepare the C10 ethoxylate, and then we just add the PO as extended surfactant, PO extended surfactant, and we increase the PO group, and then we measure the formability as a function of concentration. So the blue curve, that one is without the PO. So if I use surfactant more, then I'll have a higher form. Perfect. Okay, that's what you expect. If you have enough amount of PO, I want to use my surfactant concentration, but I don't have to worry about too much of the foam because you're not going to have increase of the foam too much. Okay, so that PO extension allow us to control the foam as a function of time. So you'll have much less sensitivity of your formability to the concentration fluctuation. Okay, one of the practical example. Imagine we have the surfactant concentrate, okay, or the concentrate product, and the end user just dilute it down with some dilution ratio. But sometimes we dilute it 1 to 100, sometimes we have 1 to 200. If we don't have any dosing device or precise dosing device, that will just give the more inconsistent performance of the forming, okay? But if you use a PO extended surfactant, you can minimize the risk of that inconsistent performance in the application because that allows you to get more or less sensitivity from the fluctuation of the concentration. Okay. But what about the PO cap? Okay, so the PO cap, like you can imagine, well, let's talk about intuition. So I mentioned your suction layer is much randomized. So you have much faster liquid drainage. So what you're going to see in the video, you'll have much faster foam breaking. And it's five times more concentration. So let's focus on that. Size of the bubble. So when we have the PO extended surfactant, your bubble growth, your bubble growth rate it is obvious. Your bubble, they don't want to break, they just grow. But the other one is, I don't want to actually grow to my size. Rather, they just break the film, and you'll have foam dissipation very quickly. Even though we are using five times more usage level than the regular PO extended surfactant. Okay, so this video clearly show you the impact of the molecular structure and how to just modify your structure and drive your optimal performance for your application. So we can increase more PO. Okay, let's imagine. So okay, this is good. So PO cap surfactant, very effective to control the foam, even break the foam. Okay, so we increase the PO number gradually and measure the foam height as a function of the concentration again. So blue curve is just moderate number of the PO, and as we increase the PO group in your molecule, we found that the slope become negative. So the physical meaning of the slope, I increase the concentration of my surfactant, I have less foam, not more foam. What does it mean? So let's think about it. Increase of the concentration, I have less foam. I have defoaming capability right now, okay? So I have negative slope. That means the surfactant itself, I am very low foam, but also I can kill the foam of the other source, okay? So if you incorporate the molecule, now you can control the foam from the other source. What is a practical example of that? Food processing or even wash. So there are so many proteins so in the food processing or milk or egg white. So when you clean that one in this caustic solution, you have to worry about a lot of the foam generation from that. Okay? So we create the egg white foam at elevated temperature, and they incorporate the PO cap surfactant, and then we change the PO number in our molecule, and as you can see, you'll have much less foam suppression if we have enough amount of PO. Okay, so the PO surfactant, it is lower foam, but also I have ability to control the foam from the other source. Okay, this is not going to be easy if you just use regular surfactant, if you just use PO extended surfactant. Okay, then okay, this is good. So then okay, I want to just then get a lot of PO. Okay, and what's going to happen? So yes, that's a kind of good one, but it was just intuition. So if you have like the PO number is like the unlimited PO, your molecule is just like kind of propylene glycol. Okay, polypropylene glycol. That means you have to face some solubility issue. This photo shows the foam structure when we change the ratio of the PO and EO. And more PO, yes, you have more foam suppression, but too much PO, can you see that kind of spot on the surfaces? That was a residue from your surfactant. That is insoluble residue in your surfactant, meaning you are just wasting your surfactant because they have the poor solubility. This is a kind of significant trade-off to PO cap surfactant or even low foam surfactant, because I'll have the ability to control the foam, but surfactant is asking to you, what is your trade-off? The trade-off is solubility. So Mother Nature is, so it is very hard to achieve the two properties same together, because now I have the control of the foam, but I have to somehow just give the trade-off, which is the solubility. Okay. So when we study this low foam structure and low foam science, okay, and we're trying to, since we understand the behavior quite deeply, so we're trying to minimize that trade-off. Can we come up with some low foam surfactant? You still have the very, very low foam, but also guarantee the great solubility. This one will allow you to concentrate your product more in the aqueous form, and then you'll have much more economic way, and you'll save time for your shipping because you have much less water in your formulation. Okay, and you don't have to worry about all the rigidity on the surfaces. That's great. So in Stepan, so we developed kind of new technologies to the novel low foam surfactant technology. So this one is still just yet commercialized, but we are very excited to share this video with all the audience. So what I prepared, so the first jar is just high HLB ethoxylate, just negative control. So high HLB, you have high solubility, so your liquid is clear, you'll have the high foam. Low HLB, or even just with the branch structure, you have lower foam, but you have what? The trade-off is the solubility. You have some kind of hazy solution. Low foam E or PO local polymer is very popular in the market. Poor solubility. You'll have almost no foam, but now you have to consider how to control then solubility, because you have very hazy solution. So focus on the last jar. So we were able to achieve the lower foam as well as a good solubility. It's not a perfect solubility, but it's still pretty great solubility compared to even low foam, low HLB surfactant. So you'll have the clarity, the much better clarity on your aqueous solution. And it's ready to play the video. So there, can you just play the video? Thank you. So you shake it. You have very high foam, low HLB. You have lower foam. Low foam EO pure local polymer, almost no foam. That's great. this low foam technology, you'll have much less foam, fast foam dissipation. We were able to drive that by changing the molecule, but also it guaranteed a good solubility. Okay, so you're able to minimize the trade-off to create the value for the end foam later. This is why it's very important to understand the science of the foam and understand their behavior. So Stepan, we do have several surfactants. We have the low foam surfactant line, the Mecon NF series. We have the EOPO blocopolymer line, reverse and direct blocopolymer. We have the low foam, just regular ethoxylate too. But I just want to emphasize, not just product. Okay, it is much more important to understand their behavior based on their physical property and how to drive the maximum value in your application. Sometimes the one low foam surfactant, just, yes, we have the low foam, but you have to get some trade-off. Okay, so in the real application, you have to combine those 2 or 3 surfactants together in your formulation. Then how do I actually expect the behavior? Okay. How do I control the performance, and so that your end customer can see the valuable performance and optimized performance in your application. So far I talked about just single surfactants, but the Rachel line will talk about then what's the behavior in the end application in more formulation. Okay, formulation. So it is very important to understand the single behavior, but also very important the behavior combination with the other surfactant too. Okay? So I just want to hand it over to Rachel Lang for the great example and great presentation for how to then deliver the optimal performance of your surfactant in your application, especially for the ware wash. Rachel?
Yeah. Thank you, Sanguk, for the great background. And at this point, let's try to apply what we've learned to our industrial applications for low foam surfactants. So these chemistries are seen in many applications. Of highlight are HI&I, of which we'll get into a little bit today in the ware wash application, as well as paints and coatings, textile processing, and metalworking. And so all these applications and many more not mentioned, a lot of key performance attributes that we want from our chemistries are obviously low foaming. We've gone over a lot, but a lot of these are high agitation methods. And so we want to ensure that we're not going to damage instrumentation. And we also need to have really great wetting and detergency. So these are processes that are happening really rapidly. And we need to ensure that at these really short timescales for wetting and detergency, we have a good product. So we need to ensure that, as well as, kind of to owe to the fact that these are really rapid processes. A lot of times we'll see high temperature and high alkalinity to help promote that rapid cleaning. And so we need to ensure that they're stable at these different conditions. So we need a lot from our chemistries. And before jumping into it, I did want to give a first poll. Derek, if you could pull up that first one. So, what is your, to the audience, what's your number one need for your rinse aid? Is it we want to ensure your rinse aid works at low temperature, or are you concerned about the scent sensitivity or mildness, skin irritation, or finally, do you have concerns about, concentrating your formulation? And I'll give everyone a little bit of a moment to get those questions in. Lots of votes coming in, so thanks. It looks like, lots of responses. So a lot of issues to resolve, obviously. Yeah, I'm gonna go forwards and get into what are really ware wash rinse aids. So ware wash is the process of cleaning our wares in the preparation of, our service of food. And pretty much in these industrial applications, we're going to always see that they're going to implement a rinse aid. And this is our final step of the ware wash process. And ultimately, what we're looking for here is we want to prevent our water spotting. And again, just to hone in on that, what we want from these chemistries is we want to see low foaming, we want to see that good wetting, as well as good stability at these really kind of harsh conditions. So a typical industrial formulation for rinse aid will look something like this, where we have 15% surfactants, and then a little bit less hydrotrope and some acid there for some chelation power and balance with water. And what we've done is we've looked at a couple of different ways to evaluate these formulations. So in one of the tests, we saw a lot of the foaming column and some of those pretty bubble pictures. That's from our foaming column where we have sparged air to generate the foaming. And for this test, we want to see worst case scenario at high usage level, at the correct temperature of interest. Do these pass, or are we going to experience really significant foaming? So that's one of our first tests. And then we'll also look at wetting, and we'll look at lower usage level to just ensure that we have a good formulation that will have good detergency. And finally, we have basically a small scale setup of what our customer might envision for their setup. So we have a countertop dishwasher test where we're able to monitor the cleaning, the wetting, the foaming in real time, and able to really evaluate our formulations in this way. So what does ideal foaming really look like for these formulations? It's not enough to just be low foaming. Of course, we want them to do everything. So when we envision any dishwash, in your home, you'll have basically a wash blade where it's going to have the cyclical feature, and it's going to dispense the formulation onto the wares. And so because these are formulations that have surface active agents, obviously we'll see some foaming, and so as we have that energy input line, we'll see increased foaming, but these formulations need to quickly break. They need to dissipate really rapidly. So each time that blade is happening, it's a really quick process. We need to have it spread onto the surface. It might foam a little bit, but also it will break. So I'll kind of have Derek show this first video to see what we see in real time. And so what's happening is you see all this water hitting the wares and you see a little bit of foam, but quickly that foam is falling, the formulation is falling off the surface. And so this is what we typically want to see. And we are okay with seeing a little bit of foam. It means our formulation is working well and it's wetting. And so again, we see the same thing when we do our foaming test, that we want to ensure that it's at this, baseline level. It doesn't have stable foam, which is non-ideal for our purposes. So it's obvious when we look at the dishwash test what bad looks like. So excessive foam, if you've ever had a child that had added some sulfates as opposed to the rinse aid, you might have some foam overflow. And so this is not what we want to see. So it's also pretty obvious to see in the dishwash test. But another thing we do want to see in our dishwashing test is that good wetting. So like I said, we can monitor in real time how this wetting behavior looks. And so we want to see a good spread of the formulation, high surface area coverage, and then also it's going to break a little bit. And bad wetting, it will cling, the formulation will cling to itself, doesn't want to interact with the wear. And so I'll show these videos to show what good wetting really looks like in real time and what bad wetting looks like. And so on the left, you see it spreads, but then it quickly dissipates. And on the right, we see beading. And it is quite obvious that this formulation on the right does not want to interact with the wear. And so that will start encountering issues like we have mineral spotting, and we won't have good cleaning. And so another way we can evaluate our wetting is at the final end of the test. You can envision too, right? When you open up your dishwasher at home, you don't want to see a bunch of water pooled up on the surfaces and then, you go put away your cups and all this water is spilling out. In the service industry, they now have to dry all these wares. And so we can clearly see if it's a bad wetter that there will be this significant pooling of water. And that's an indication of bad wetting. It wants to again stick to itself. So good wetting, we won't see those significant pools. And if we visually look at the plates, we can see that there is, for good wetting, there's still going to be water droplets, but they'll quickly evaporate because they're dispersed over high surface area, versus if it's bad wetting, it's beaded and it's going to take significantly longer to evaporate. And so ultimately, we want to see no mineral residue on the wares. And so when we do have good wetting, we see that If we look at a light box test, we'll see that we have, after our introduction of rinse aid and the dishwash cycle, we'll see that we have very shiny, clear looking glass, but for bad wetting, we will see opaque, a lot of mineral residue, which is going to scatter light. And so that's where we encounter some issues. And again, this requires now more time for workers in the service industry to clean a second time. So when we have our low foam chemistries, there's going to be a lot of different applications where, the customer might have this setup for their industrial wear wash and a customer has a different setup. So we've now determined we're confident in our methods to deliver optimized formulations. So we might have to tune a formulation to work at a certain alkalinity level or with a different agent in the formulation at a different temperature. And so what we've really done is honed in on our expertise and our method development to ensure that we know we can differentiate now what is an optimized formulation. So typically, if you just have the low foam wetting agent, it will perform okay. But if you add a wetting agent, for example, DA6, you'll see that it actually improves the formulation. And so at what ratio to add it at to, we've optimized these results. So I'll show this video to show how different it looks like when we have just the low foam wetting agent, or this is our reverse block copolymer. It does wet, but it could do better. It could stay on the wear a little bit longer and break a little bit faster in a more cohesive manner. So we see on the right, it's sticking together, but it's slowly coming off the surface. So this is what we consider to be an optimized blend. And at the very end of the test too, again, that same idea of wetting, we can pull out our wear and we see that it is not a lot of water residue on the surface. And so these are ways for us to ensure that we've delivered a good formulation to customers, and to also help some of our customers, we've made this decision tree. So if you have, you're kind of just starting out and in this wear wash space, rinse aid space, and you're having some issues, we've made this really helpful guide for you guys to know, okay, if I have excessive foam, what should I do now? Or if I have really a lot of scale buildup, how can I fix this? So we made this decision tree with that in mind. And we also have a nice formulation guide. I'll have Derek pull that up for everyone, where it'll give you a link to, a guide to using certain ingredients for the wear wash application. And finally, I want to give one last poll to everyone. So besides wear wash, what other applications do you guys use your low foam surfactants in? Is this clean in place? Is it other industrial institutional cleaning applications? Do you use these for metal cleaning or for that textile and fabric processing or membrane cleaning? And I'll give everyone a little bit of time to get some of those in. And again, great responses. Thank you, everyone. This one seems to be a little bit more diversified. So yeah, just honing in on the fact that these chemistries are used in so many different applications. But with that, it looks like we have a good response rate. So I'll hand it over to Russ.
Thank you, Rachel. And we really appreciate everyone's time and hope that you all walk away with a better understanding of the potential growth with low foam surfactants and really the role that low foam surfactants play in your formulations. And we ask and hope that you consider Stepan for your low foam surfactant needs. We have a lot of resources that you have. You can take advantage of our Stepan's virtual collaboration lab, where you can go for viewing live demonstrations or really troubleshooting your formulations. You can find great resources on our website, the alkoxylate landing page, that's where you can go for product literature, additional alkoxylate technical videos, and also go for getting more information on products and formulations. And then we have an outstanding technical service team that is there for you, where you can go and submit an inquiry or have a live chat on the web to answer any questions you may have. So again, I want to thank you and thank everyone online for attending the webinar. And I think we have some time now for some questions, Derek.
Sounds great. And as we get prepared for this Q&A, just as a reminder to the audience, you can submit your questions in the question box located in the bottom right of your screen. We have already had a few come in. Rachel, this first one here is for you. Would low foaming behavior be different when pH changes?
Yeah, so for the pH consideration, no, typically, again, nonionics are not impacted by pH, and especially we're not going to be going down below, the hydrolysis level. So we just have to ensure solubility. We still have a little bit of anionic there. So long as the solubility is still good, no, we shouldn't have any concern.
And then Sungwook, we can use a regular surfactant at low usage level to have low foaming. So should we still use low foam surfactants?
That's a fair, because I want to use just regular surfactant at lower usage level, and I don't have to worry about the foam. So the thing is, some application we want to actually use more foam. If you want to even emulsify your kind of active material in your formulation, or if you want to just get the micro immersion formulation with the surfactant, so you have to use a good amount of surfactant to do that. So there's an inevitable situation we have to use a more surfactant. Therefore, you have to consider the foamability. Okay? So the low foam surfactant will provide a value in that situation, so that you don't have to worry about that kind of consequence of the high foaming, even though you are increasing the usage level of the surfactant. So if your application just you're okay to use just small amount of the surfactant to control the foam, that's totally fine. That's a perfect application. So not saying the low foam surfactant is better than just a regular surfactant, but it depends on what application you're facing and what the key deliverable you want to get. So in that case, the story I just mentioned, that's the kind of specific situation that you'll get the benefit of the low foam surfactant, because you can just increase your usage level without any the consequence of the high foaming.
And Sungwook, another question to go along kind of with that: can we replace an anti-foaming agent with low foam surfactants?
The answer is I don't recommend, because there's kind of great literature of the science of the anti-foaming. My PhD advisor and even the Dr. Peter Grad, they did a great job to unveil the science of the defoaming and the anti-foaming. So usually the anti-foamer, they're more like hydrophobic material, like even hydrophobic just oil, or even hydrophobized silica. So they're just designed for the foam suppression. Okay, they're not designed to improve the surface activity. Okay, so if you have some situation, you have to just get that the foam, just knock it out. We have to just use anti-foam. The low foam surfactant or defoaming surfactant, they are not replacing the anti-foam. However, you can actually combine together to actually accelerate or to increase the effectiveness of the anti-foam. What does it mean? If you have the anti-foam, I want to reduce the anti-foam to some amount, and then just want to compensate that one with the surfactant, can always combine those two. So that is why in many anti-foam deformulation, they have this anti-foam active particle or active oil, and also they have the emulsifier, which is kind of low foam emulsifier to compensate that, to canceling out that effect.
And then Rachel, this next one here is for you. Can we use low foam surfactants with enzymes or peroxide?
Yeah, definitely a good question. And yes, we can use in the presence of both. And again, just have to ensure that they'll be stable, but typically the usage levels we'll be using it at, we don't expect the enzyme will get denatured, and we expect compatibility with up to a certain level of peroxide. But ultimately just ensure it's stable, and yeah, no concern.
Perfect. Well, thank you everybody for attending today's webinar. Just as a reminder, we will send you a link to the recording of today's webinar so you can watch it at any time and share with others at your company. A representative from Stepan will reach out to you in regards to your questions. You will now be redirected to Stepan's website for more information. Thank you again for attending, and we hope you have a great day.